Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the year. Happy New Year, and welcome to 2024. We are so excited to be back in the studio and to be discussing health and wellness matters because it's so important, and those are very big parts of our lives. So, welcome to 2024. We hope you have an amazing year, and we hope that regardless of what comes your way, you're able to keep making progress because that's the most important thing. It's not about just one singular moment where you fall or singular moment where you're unable to do the things you need to do, but the moment where you keep on going regardless of all of that. So we hope that that's what you're able to do this year. And so welcome. Today we're going to be speaking about something very important that you might not often think of because we're surrounded by it. It's everywhere. It's in our rooms. It's in our classrooms. It's everywhere, really. And so many times the effects are very subtle, but they are very, 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 they can be very, very, very adverse. So joining me in the studio today is an amazing person who one of my earliest memories with him is him speaking about an interesting challenge he did with his friends concerning his screen time. But we're going to get into that later. But joining me today in the studio is the amazing Patrick.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to talk about what we have on the docket for today. And it's good to be, this is my first podcast I've ever done, so it's good to be in a studio.
Welcome, Patrick. How are you doing today, Patrick?
Doing well. I woke up early, went for a run, feeling productive, had a class, and I'm leading my first outing club trip this afternoon. So once this is done, I have to load up a truck full of cross-country skis and head to northern Maine. So it should be a good time. I'm feeling excited.
That's nice. When you say you woke up early, how early is early?
7.
7, nice.
For me, that's early.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good. That's early. Yeah, It's funny because I've been waking up. I also woke up at 7 today, but other days this week I woke up at like 6.
I feel like I'm at the start right now where it's possible, like the readings haven't hit me yet, so
Yeah.
it's possible to actually get 8 hours of sleep. So I'm trying to take advantage of it because later in the semester, it's just not going to be happening.
Really? Is it impossible to have a lot of work to do and to get 8 hours of sleep?
I know people do it. I just don't know how they do. I'm a really slow reader, so it takes me a while to chug through the material because I know there are plenty of people that can manage it all and still get 8 hours, but I haven't cracked the code yet. I'm still working there.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And it's not just even about the reading, it's about the other things you're doing. If you're leading an outing club trip like you're doing this weekend, or if you're involved in Rest Life. Oh, we're both on the Rest Life
Look
team.
at that.
We're both Rest Lifers for more. So if you're doing all these other things, it just takes up your time, and so it's fair if at some point you can get 8 hours of sleep, but you can still get a healthy amount of sleep though.
Yeah, no, it's possible. And yeah, I think you just kind of have to be intentional with it. Like everyone at the school is so, so well rounded that they're doing like 8,000 different things. So it is hard sometimes to find the time to get sleep and like do those things you need to do to take care of yourself, but it's definitely possible. And this semester, this is going to be a semester of change. This is the time that the change happens, and I'll be getting 8 hours all semester long.
Okay, I live just a few floors above you. I live one floor above you, so I'm going to try to keep you accountable.
Keep checking on me.
Okay, amazing. You mentioned change, and I love that because change doesn't come easy, but change is the only constant thing in life, as they like to say. And so, yeah, that's good. That's good. So now we're going to head straight into the topic of today, which is screens, socials, and our health. We are going to be speaking about how our screens, and by screens we mean all our devices, honestly, and then social media and, all the technology and how these are impacting our health and how we can set healthy boundaries with them, because that's really, really important for anything, honestly, important for how we show up to the world, important for our physical health, our mental health, important for our relationships, important for how we see ourselves, So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. And so I'm going to start off by asking a question about how you relate with your devices, Patrick. What's that like?
I think it kind of changes all the time. Like I find that like during the summer, I really don't use my computer. I use my phone like more so like for communicating with my friends and for like scheduling work with my boss. But my phone, especially during the summer, is like my main, the main screen that I use, but I really don't use it all that often. Or at least I like try not to. And then during the school year, it shifts where it's like my computer is my main screen, and I'm probably on my computer, like either my computer or like doing readings on my iPad. Probably on average like 6 hours a day between like class time and working outside of class. And that kind of like, because I am always on the computer for school, it doesn't really leave much time for like TV. Like TV is kind of, as a screen, is kind of like gone out of my life. There's just no
that
time
makes
for it.
so much sense.
And then, so that's like, more like the good stuff. But then during the school year, I find that my screen time on my phone does increase because I start using it more as like kind of a distractor. And I'm in a current period, on 5 days ago, I deleted Instagram. And so my screen time has been down, and I've been trying to, be more productive and stuff. But it just changes throughout the semester. Like there'll be a day when I'm bored and I re-download it, and then I sink a couple hours into watching videos about cars. So it's always changing. But I think it kind of that like seasonality to it is interesting too, because like during the winter I find like it's cold, I don't want to go outside, so I'm spending more times on screens just because I'm spending more time inside.
Yes. That's you touched on many things we're going to speak about, and I like what you said about how it changes with seasons, because I think for many things it's like that. So sometimes how we our workout routine changes with seasons. It might be winter and we are unable to work out at the gym as much as we want to because it's snowing and we don't want to go outside. It's really cold. Same thing with our eating habits. Maybe it's winter and it's just so many things change depending on the season we're in, but not just even season as in weather, but season of life we're in. We're writing finals, you're preparing for a job interview, you're writing a professional exam. There are just so many things that change with seasons, and so we want to I want everyone listening to this to keep that in mind, that we understand that depending on the season you're in your life, it might feel harder to be away from screens. Maybe you're trying to start as a content creator, you're trying to do that and you're trying to be on Instagram more because you want to produce more content. All of that, there are lots of nuances and we understand. But we really want to talk about how you can set personal boundaries, how you can set healthy boundaries, because too much of everything is not good. And so even if you're trying to get into the content creation space, for example, and you're spending a ton of time on social media, that's not going to be healthy for you. And so, Patrick, you mentioned that your use of all these devices fluctuates during different seasons. That's true. And I wanted to ask whether when you use like your devices, your phone more in the summer, or when you use your computer more during the school year, if you notice anything about, let's say, your back or your eyes, or are there times where you feel like, I feel like my eye is hurting more than it does in the summer, or I feel like, I feel more rested in the summer because I am not using my computer. Are there any things you notice, like when you look back at your screen time usage? Are there any things you usually notice?
I think the summer I find that I get less sleep, but not as a product of like my screen time is down and I spend less time on my screens. It's just I spend my summers like working as much as I can, and then when I'm not working, I'm kayaking or going to the beach or hanging out with friends. So I'm always doing something. So I find I get less sleep unrelated to the screen time versus during the school year. I find that I get headaches more often. I
do too.
I because you're spending so much time just looking at these small fonts and the screen. My eyes are definitely strained more. I don't really notice any back issues, but I know that is kind of a common symptom of, like arched over looking at a computer for hours at a time.
Yes, that is true. And I asked that question because I wanted to mention some of the health problems that come with spending so much time on your screens, and so much time by screens again we mean on your phones and your computers, just screens in general. One of the major issues like musculoskeletal issues, when you're looking down at your phone, when you're hunched over on your laptop, that can cause a lot of, because over time it's going to start causing back pain, and sometimes it even comes to, many times, never sometimes, even like when people who like play games, video games and all of that, it happens a lot when you're hunched over, you're sitting down, the positions of your shoulders, of your elbows, of your arms, of your lower back. And so back pains are a major one. Eye strain, it's called like digital eye strain, is another one. The rays from your computers, the rays from your phones, the rays from so many screens around, those are another ones. Disrupted sleep is another one. By the time you're exposed so much to the rays from your screen, many of us are reading books on our phones, on our iPads, on our computers, reading books before we go to bed, watching TV, I think it's interesting that you said that TVs are like, don't really fall under the category of screens for you as much, because they're not a big part of your screen life, which is the same for me, and I think it's probably the same for a lot of young people, especially people in school. And so TV and all of that. Disrupted sleep is another one. Physical inactivity is another one, because when you're spending, let's say you spend 2 hours on your phone scrolling through a particular social media platform, that time you spend sitting, you've like, it's very sedentary. We're like sitting a lot, and so physical inactivity is another one. And so it's, parents are worried. There's one study that showed that like a lot of parents are worried that your children are getting less physical activity than they did, and that's because there are screens everywhere. And so I wanted to pause on physical inactivity and ask you whether you think your screens affect your physical activity, whether there are times where you notice that, I'm sitting a lot and it's because of my phones, or do you think, I love kayaking a lot, I am all this kayaking when I want to, there's never a time where my screens are like a disruptor of that?
That's an interesting one, because I do think that like the amount of time that I spend on my screens, it is almost exclusively when I'm like sitting down or laying down. Like it's rare that I'm like on my phone when I'm walking or moving. I think that like when every minute that I'm on my phone is a minute that I'm not doing something like physically active. So I do think there is definitely that component to it, but also I find that it hasn't really affected, like it's rare that I'm like, just sitting on my phone and then I forget to go to the gym, or I forget to like, go out for a walk. Like I feel like I'm still able to balance getting that like intentional physical activity that I seek out. But there's definitely that like kind of like added negative to spending so much time on your phone is that you don't even think about it, but it's just, if you took the phone away, would you just be sitting in a chair for 2 hours doing nothing? Like, no, you'd get uncomfortable. But the fact that you're, locked into your phone, you kind of turn that part of your brain off and you forget that you're just, not moving.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And now I want to switch to social media. But I want to ask, Patrick, why do you think we spend, I know this sounds like an obvious question, but I think sometimes we miss the obvious questions. Why do you think we spend so much time on our screens? I think we know the answer, but I want us to like actually voice out our thoughts on this. Why do you think it's such a big thing? Do you think it's like how our societies are built now, how our institutions are built now? Why do you think screens are such a big part? And do you think that we can actually successfully break free in a way that's healthy? Or do you think it's just going to be a cycle that we think we break free, but then it's going to get shoved back into our face again? Like, with all the advancements, do you think there's a way for us to actually truly have healthy boundaries with our devices?
I think it's possible. I mean, I'm no expert, but I think, on the individual level, you have control over a lot. And like, as a student, I have readings that are posted online. I have assignments I have to do online. I have, lab data sets that I can only view online. Like, there are certain things that are non-negotiable that I have to be on a screen for. But I think so much of my screen time is that, the negotiable time, like stuff that I have control over. And so I think that, and like you said, like kind of on the institutional level, I think there could be some change to, move away from requiring that reliance on spending so much time on your screen to get assignments done. But, even without that occurring, I think people still have it in their power to decide to, not spend so much time on social media. I think that there's quite a bit of evidence and, a lot of research has gone into the algorithms that these social media companies use. And it's impressive that they're able to, lock people in like that, but it's kind of scary. And so I can see a future. I think if people take more intentional steps and are willing to criticize their own screen time usage, I think it's possible for us to move away from this screen centric society we live in. But whether the difference between possible and likely are two different things. I wouldn't be shocked if we kind of keep going down this road and we don't move away from screens.
And now I wanted to say that, one thing I think about when I ask this question, even to myself, is the fact that, when we try to have, let's say, assignments online, or when we try to have more things on our screens and iPads, there's the part of we're trying to save the environment by not having to print out, cut down trees to print out papers for all of this. Imagine you had a 100-page reading to do. Imagine having to print out like 50 pages versus having to just read it on your iPad, So it's like all of that, having to say that, okay, all my readings this semester, I'm going to print them out. That's a lot of paper. But then if you read them on your iPad, then you're saving the paper. But again, it's like, where do we strike the balance, or how do we strike the balance, or where do we draw the line, And so I think that's something I always think about. But yeah, so you mentioned social media and the algorithms, and now I think that's a good segue to social media. We have so many effects of social media on our health. And in fact, just like you said, a lot of research has been done into these algorithms, because a lot of research has shown the psychological effects of social media. Let's even start from like anxiety and depression. There has been a lot of studies to show that, an increased use of social media has been connected to, aggravating depression in certain people who are prone to it. And then it's really jarring to see how these companies, like you said, are investing in these algorithms, and then these algorithms are feeding on the attention of people. And I really wanted to think, for you, how's your relationship with, I know you spoke about screens in general, but you mentioned Instagram, deleting that. What made you get to that point? And what's your relationship with social media like, for you to be able to say, okay, I need to step back? I feel like for you, if you're able to delete Instagram, you have a somewhat healthy relationship with it. For you to be able to actually step back and say, I'm going to delete this. So in general, what's your relationship with social media like? Are you a user of like TikTok and the others are like, and by social media, I don't know if we should classify YouTube. As
Would that skew your screen time? You sound like it sounds like some bias right there. Well, I'm not a big YouTube enjoyer, so I won't include that one. I'm not on TikTok. I had it back in the day, but then I found that app more so than any of the others could, suck people in, and you just scroll and scroll and scroll. So, and I didn't like that, lack of agency I had, so I deleted it. I have Snapchat. I probably check it like once every 3 days and like look at my friends' stories. I haven't sent a Snapchat in months. And I don't have TikTok, don't really use YouTube. And I have Instagram. And so that was kind of like that was probably the biggest social media like time suck I had. And I would say like my relationship, what kind of caused me to delete it this time, and I've deleted it many times, so who knows how long it'll last for. But this time it gets me a little bit pissed off, how little control I have, because you think you have like total control. We are free beings in this world, and I would find myself just like they'd send a video of a Land Cruiser my way, and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna watch that, and then now I'm like 45 videos deep, and I can't recount a single thing. It's like that highway effect where you're driving on the highway and you just zone out, or like you walk to class and you have done it a million times, so your brain shuts off and you just kind of like wake up when you're at class. Like, I don't know, the lack of agency really is what got me to delete it this time, and many times in the past. Cause I feel like, I like to feel like I'm in control, and I think it's absolutely possible to use that app. And like, I use it and I post it when I've done some cool things with my friends. And so I'll post the pictures, and then I'll go on and I'll stay in touch with friends, and I'll like use it for 20 minutes a day and like stay up to date. But as soon as it gets to the point where I'm, opening up every time I have a free couple of minutes, or, it's the first thing I open in the morning, then that's kind of when I realized like, this is no longer, I don't have the control over this that I want to have. So I have to cut bait now before I, get sucked in further.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. That lack of agency with social media is definitely a real thing. And I think I read about this, that one of the things with social media, is that it has a reinforcing nature. You go there and it connects with what you said. You go there and it reinforces the same pathways. You're like going there, you quickly swipe and go to Instagram, and then you scroll. It's just something that is very easy for your brain to do, and it serves as a reward. There's a lot of dopamine that comes with using social media, and so when your brain is releasing all this dopamine, and then it's something you don't want to let go of, if something can give you that much dopamine, why would you want to step away from it? But the problem is that's not the best source of dopamine. If that's your only source of dopamine, then you're bound to get addicted to it, because you want to go there to feel good. And so if you're having a bad day, you want to open Instagram. If you're feeling anxious or something, you just want to if you want to feel good at all, you just want to go on social media. So that's one of the things about social media. And the way social media has been built to be filled with a ton of different content is another thing that keeps drawing us in. You go on Instagram and we're using Instagram a lot because it's just the example we started with, so we're kind of sticking, but this goes for several other platforms, honestly. You go on Instagram and then you open Instagram, you're kind of expecting a new content. You're not really expecting to see the content you saw before, even if it pops on your timeline, but that's not what you're really expecting to see. And if you open it again in a few hours, you're going to see fresh content, because there's always content online. There's always content. Content is being churned out every minute. And so because of the fact that there's this unpredictability on what you're going to see, like there's always something fresh. It always makes you want to come back. So that's another thing that always gets us back to social media. But again, social media brings about these comparisons, and it brings like anxiety. on your edge, you're wondering what other people are doing, or you're wondering what other people think about what you're doing. When you post on your stories, when you post on your feed, you're wondering, oh, what does this person think about what I did? What do these people think about what I did? And all those things are very related to our health, because the way our brain works, and it just, in fact, I wish we could go deeply into it, but the use of social media is very much linked to increased anxiety and depression. And then it's very subtle, because you might not realize it at first, but when you step back, you're like, oh wow, and so that's one I wanted to mention. Another one social media does is, we mentioned this for screens, but I really wanted to mention it again, is disrupted sleep. Because when you're on social media, you're quite active. You're watching that reel of those really cute cats and dogs, or like cars, and then before you know it, I don't know if it happens to you, but one thing that happens to me is I find it a bit difficult to sleep when my mind is active. Like I don't even know how to describe it, but when I am actively thinking of things, I find it really, really hard to sleep, because my mind is like calculating things. And I think that's what social media does. When you just, let's say, use your phone right before you go to bed, then you're thinking of that video you saw, or thinking of that post you saw, and then it disrupts your sleep, because your brain will find it a bit harder to shut down. And so that's another thing that social media does. And so I really like what you said about that lack of like autonomy with social media. And I think it's a really big one. And so I wanted us to think about the nuances that come with using social media for like important things, for good things, for connections, and then using social media out of just reflex. How do you think we can begin to draw the line, and how do you think we can begin to set healthy boundaries? What like, if there was one way you could start, you would draw the line, what would be the way? And if there's someone who is like finding it really, really hard to like draw the line or to break free, like what would be one way you would advise them to start?
I have always found that when I go through like social media breaks where I just, delete everything and take some time away, it makes you get a better appreciation of the times that you do use social media. That came out wrong. When I don't have Instagram downloaded, I find that I will be like waiting for an elevator, and I feel the urge to pull out my phone. I will find that I'm waiting for class to start, and I'll feel the urge, and so you gain a better understanding of your own, like, because those are like, unintentional. You're not thinking, I want to look at pictures of X, Y, or Z.
Yes,
it's just there's nothing to do. Okay, my brain tells me to go in my phone, go in my pocket, pull out my phone, and so when you. Even if just kind of like as like an exploratory practice, you delete social media for a week and just try to pick up on and get that appreciation of the times that you're trying that you are like feel an urge to get out your phone, and then kind of like analyze that and realize like, because you could think like, oh, actually I don't really feel that urge. Like I feel like every time that I pull out my phone and look at social media, like it's intentional, it's good. But what I have found is I'm like, wow, it's crazy that like normally I'd be on my phone right now as I'm waiting for this elevator, but now I'm able to just take a second and, empty my brain. And so I would say, just maybe to start, delete it for a week and like, self-analyze and see when you are, not instinctually, but when you're when you feel the urge to look at, car videos online.
And you said a week, and that can seem scary. You don't even have to, it might not even be a week, it might be 2 days, because 2 days can feel a lot for a lot of people, understandably so. And so even a day, 2 days, just pay attention, maybe I would say, to the times where you feel like you want to reach out for your phone and reach out for your devices. And this is especially towards social media. But I wanted to go back to the effect of social media and talk about connectivity, because you spoke about how sometimes we want to just out of instinct reach out to our phone, but we didn't mention connectivity, and I really wanted to mention that because social medias and even our devices, of course, they have their positive impact, which I'm sure many of us know. But they can really reduce connectivity. And I think that's because sometimes we don't want to be uncomfortable. So let's say you are in a hall with people and you're there for an event and you don't know anyone. It's easier to reach out for your phone and just, hey, I wonder what's going on Instagram, rather than approach someone to speak to them, because we don't want to be in a place of discomfort. But being in a place of discomfort, like good discomfort, helps facilitate our growth. But many times our screens take that away from us because it gives us some form of comfort and familiarity that we don't want to let go of. We really want to just hold on to that comfort and familiarity. But then constantly reaching out to our phones can make us miss out on making wonderful connections, instead of reaching out for our phones. And I mean, again, it can feel very nerve-wracking to reach out to people at a conference where you don't know anyone. But sometimes doing that can have like a big effect, because then you can have good conversations, meet new people, make, meaningful networks. And so that's another one I really wanted to mention. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Patrick.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, I like go to like, a friend's room that I haven't been to before, and like there are a lot of people there that I don't know. Like, you get that, like, that natural urge, or at least I get it. I assume most people get it. Like, to just, I have spent so much time on my phone, that feels way more familiar than spending time in this room with these strangers. So I am going to defer to the thing that I know way better. And yeah, that can be really detrimental. Like again, I think losing out on, as soon as you start losing out on those like in person and those like real connections, because of your social media use, I think that's a time to, like, red flag should be going off, and you should, like, that's too much. So I think, if you're able to kind of like, self-analyze, and if you find yourself doing that, which again, most of us do, just, I would say, try to limit that. And, it's scary it's way scarier to go talk to that stranger than to pull out your phone and, like, check what the weather's going to be like for the next 7 days. But I think that, we could all benefit a lot more from, reaching out for that greater connectivity instead of reaching for our phones.
And, the thing with reduced connections is that it increases isolation. And then an increased isolation means, we're more prone to, like, having anxieties. And it just really connects back to what we mentioned at the start of the effects of, like, social media on our mental health. Because when you're constantly feeling isolated, that's the dopamine that comes from being with people that you love, cracking jokes with people that you care about. When you don't have all of that, and when you're not having those, human connections, that can really impact your health. Increased isolation can result in a lot of negative experiences, because then we're having more frequent negative thoughts, because you're alone. You're wondering, whether there are things wrong with you, and then there are just so many things that can result as and so when you're isolated, your mind is more prone to thoughts that probably would not have been there if you were, like, busy with connections. And so that's a really big one. And then social media can aggravate addiction. Addiction in and of itself of social media is one thing, but addiction for other things you might be struggling with, if you're trying to break free from other things, social media can really aggravate things. Like, if there was, like, addiction with gaming, social media can also aggravate all those kind of addictions. And so those are things to also watch out for. If you're trying to break free from a negative habit, you should also watch out for how social media is aggravating that, because social media can also do that. So yes, I know we've mentioned a lot of the negative impacts, but that's because we know that these things are things we all most likely are quite familiar with. But then even when we're familiar with these things, it's easy for them to just sleep, because it's so subtle, honestly. And so that's why I really wanted us to mention this. But of course, we're not going to spend the whole episode talking about this negative impact. In fact, far from it. We're going to spend the rest of the time speaking about how to set practical boundaries with social media. And don't worry, these are going to be like, these are pick and choose kind of boundaries. You don't have to do everything. You can, in fact, only pick one thing to do. That's because we want you to do the things that work for you. We don't want you to try to do everything at once, because then you're going to come crashing down. If you try to make too many changes all at once, you're going to end up not making any change at all, because you're going to be so overwhelmed, you're going to stop. And so we don't want that to happen. We want to actually set practical tips. And so the first thing on our list is something you mentioned actually at the beginning of this episode. You didn't even mention it concerning social media, but you mentioned the word intentionality. And I really want us to talk about that. How do you think intentionality can help in setting healthy boundaries, Patrick?
I think, it gives, when you only, use your screens when you like make a conscious decision to use them, then I feel like you just have a much better relationship with them. And then you are less likely to fall into, the cycle of just bored, pull out my phone. So yeah, I guess if you start from a place of intention where you are only going on your phone when you actively decide to, then you're probably not going to have the same unhealthy relationship. Like, I don't really feel positive about going on Instagram because I don't feel like I'm in control, and I think that I lack in intentionality when I use that. So it's not as positive. But if you want to have a positive relationship with social media, it's absolutely possible. I think you just need to, if you only use it when you really want to use it, then you'll have a better picture of it in your mind, and you'll enjoy it more, and you'll feel like you are in control.
Yes, and that's really true. And I was going to ask you about how you do that, but you already mentioned, occasionally deleting. So I'm going to speak about how I do that. One of the ways I've been intentional about my social media use is by removing them. I've never actually deleted Instagram before, which is interesting, but I don't have any of my social media apps on my home screen. They're all in the...
Oh, in that little, like the back pocket.
Yeah, the back pocket. And so whenever I go there, I actually have to find them. I think I removed... LinkedIn was the last one I removed, and I think I removed it a few weeks ago. But Instagram, I have removed from my home screen since I got to Bowdoin. So it's been a while. WhatsApp, I removed last year, I think, from my home screen. And so Instagram, for example, I turned off my notifications just as I got to Bowdoin. I turned off all my notifications, so I don't get any notification at all from Instagram unless I'm in Instagram. So some days I forget I even have Instagram. As of now, we're recording on a Friday. The last time I was on Instagram was on Tuesday. And it's not deleted. It's on my phone. I just have not used it. And it's not like I'm even writing exams or anything. In fact, I actually am recuperating. So I think I even had the chance to use Instagram because I missed class for 2 days because I was recuperating. But I still haven't used Instagram, because...
Impressive.
I know. I feel very proud of myself for that, actually. But that's because I wanted that autonomy. I wanted to be able to choose. I wanted to see how far I could go without using it. Of course, I have to go again. For example, when I have to do things for Blooming Daily, I have to go for Instagram. But on days where I know I don't need to go on Instagram, I try not to. I ask myself what I could be doing instead. So intentionality is very important. What are the small things you can do to change how you interact with these apps? I think for me, and it's something I encourage other people to do, it can be as small as just removing them from your home screen. It can be as small as turning off those notifications. Because the way those notifications are made, they're made to make you want to see what's going on. When the Instagram notification comes, it's a few words, but you don't see everything. So you're like, oh, I want to see this. And then you click on it to see the whole thing. You never see the whole thing. And so, turning off those notifications could go a long way. It might not, again, we are using Instagram a lot, but this is not just even about Instagram. Even sometimes for your emails, you might even want to restrict your email notifications at certain time. Just, intentionality is a big one. And then another thing I wanted to mention was set boundaries surrounding time. And I would like us to talk about that, Patrick. Like, you can say, okay, I want to spend 15 minutes. The max time I can spend at a go is 15 minutes. And the max number of times I can spend those 15 minutes is 3 times a day. Setting boundaries around time really helps you. I think phones can do that.
Yeah, there's settings for that, which is pretty cool.
So I haven't done any of that because I think for me, I have a pretty good way to tell my time. I usually just check my screen time usage. But yeah, setting boundaries around time is a big one. And Patrick, would you like to maybe give an example of how you could, if you wanted to implement that, how you would do that? And I want to ask you about the challenge you did with your friends in first year. So
yeah, my friends and I last year, we were, I don't know how it came up. A couple of them had the idea originally, so I kind of joined in later. And we were kind of talking about how, our screen time was way too high. We were spending more time on our phones than we liked. And the things I talked about earlier, like we did not feel like we were in control. We're not being intentional with the screen time usage, list goes on and on. So we decided, it was probably around like 9 or 10 of us.
Wow,
it was a big crew. So we had a 2-week period. And the basic idea was see how low your screen time can get. And there was no reward for the lowest screen time, but there was a punishment, just to make it fun. So the person with the highest screen time, at the end of the 2 weeks had to shave his head or get a buzz cut. But he had to cut it really short. And so it was interesting because it was a 2-week period. I really noticed, like I was saying earlier, I really noticed the mindless times where you pull out your phone, because I would pull up my phone and go to open up an app and I'd be like, oh no, I deleted all of my apps, because I really did not want to shave my head. And
that would have been really funny.
I don't think I could do it. I'm happy I was able to keep my screen time as low as I did, because I would not have liked losing that challenge. But yeah, it was a very, very cool experience. We found that we were like, when we would hang out, we were all just like more present, because no one was distracted by like, oh, who am I getting a text from? Oh, what is this video on Instagram? Like everyone was just in the moment, because we were all holding each other accountable. Like we were all, anytime you'd see anyone on their phone, you'd be like, oh, hey, like you want to buzz your hair? Okay, go for it. Like, and so having that camaraderie in it was also great, because it wasn't just, an individual thing I was doing on my own. I could like see the benefits in my friends and these people I care about. So that was an added bonus to the whole challenge as well. And I know that's also, it was 2 weeks, and then afterwards, I go back to, I like re-downloaded Instagram, and I found that for about like a month or two after, my screen time still stayed pretty low. And then eventually like summer hit, and then, it's kind of just a different setup. But
yeah,
I felt it was like a 2-week cleanse, and it did make me realize that, it's totally possible to take the yoke off and release yourself from the social media beast. So I do think that there is hope. And so if anyone wants to scrape together 9 or 10 of their friends and, have a screen time challenge, I would highly recommend it.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny when you said take the yoke off. It's like you're breaking out of the chains. Oh my goodness. I think I want to take just a few seconds to, piece apart the things you said from this challenge, because there are a lot of elements to it that made it work. One, you set boundaries around time, so you were trying to lower your screen time. You could check that, like you could see what your screen time was, and I think that's really helpful when you can actually see your screen time. So you're not guessing whether or not you used a lot of time on your screen or not. You can actually see it. That was one. Another thing is you did it with friends, so there was a lot of accountability. You weren't feeling like you were doing it alone, and that was a pretty big group. I didn't even know that. I thought you guys were maybe 6. I didn't know you were that many.
We had a crew. It was a lot.
That's good. That's a lot of accountability. So that's another one, and I think that even helps introduce another point I wanted to mention, but I can just mention it now. Having accountability is a big thing. You might not be able to find 10 friends to do this with, but even 3 friends is enough. You can tell people I'm really struggling with my screen time, and this is becoming an issue for me. Please help keep me accountable. If you see me somewhere and you see me just focusing on my screen, feel free to tap me.
Absolutely.
That's fine. You can tell people you're close to. Another thing that I noticed worked was that there was, I mean, it would have been great if there was a reward. I wanted to say there would have been, but there was a punishment, which I think, there was some insensitive. This was like more on the punishment part. But another thing that you can do is you can set a reward for yourself at the end of the week. If you check your screen time, reward yourself, and don't reward yourself with going on Instagram because you're kind of undoing it.
Yeah.
But maybe reward yourself with something nice. Gift yourself something. It's a habit I'm trying to get into this year, rewarding myself. I told myself I was going to get into the habit about 9 months ago in March when we recorded an episode on rewards, but I didn't get into the habit. So I really want to do that this year. It's part of my goals this year. So rewarding yourself is definitely one thing. So I think, for the case of your group, it was like, oh, there was like a punishment. But I think that's what worked for you guys, and it was fun for you guys. But for other groups, it can be like a reward for the person with the lower screen time. And of course, you don't. And another thing that really worked was that you started off with a short time frame, relatively short. It was just 2 weeks. It wasn't 1 month. It wasn't an entire semester. It was just 2 weeks. It felt like you could see the end already from the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, it's Friday today, 2 Fridays from now. It's like, okay, it's like doable. It's half a month. So that's another thing that worked. You had a short time frame, and it connects to one of the things we wanted to mention, which was that start slow. You don't even have to do 2 weeks. It could, just like we mentioned earlier, it could be 2 days, but that's fine. Don't jump into a 1 month boat if you don't think it's sustainable, because then you're going to crash then you might crash, or then you might think you can't keep pushing forward and you're just going to stop altogether. So give yourself a smaller time frame and smaller pacing, so that a shorter pacing, so that it can actually feel doable. And so just like, Patrick did 2 weeks, you could do 3 days, you could do 1 week, you could do just 1 weekend. And I like what you said about cleansing. It felt like cleansing, didn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It felt very refreshing.
Yeah.
It was a very positive experience.
Yes. So I like that word cleansing, because I think, yes, sometimes we think of like detox based on like maybe food detox, but social media detox. This is an action point for the year. Maybe have one weekend every month where you do a social media detox. If you're not a big social media person already, you might not need a full weekend or anything, but just for anyone who needs this is something that we highly, highly recommend, having a social media detox. And then, but of course, it's fine to use social media. I know we didn't at any point in this podcast say it's not, because it's good to connect with people. It's a great place to like. What are some of your favorite things to do on social media, Patrick? Let me ask you that.
Again, when I use it properly, it is cool, because I like to see pictures of like some of my friends, and like they're having fun at their respective colleges, and like, so I do think it is a very valuable tool to help like keep in touch with people. Like maybe people that you kind of knew that you don't really have their number, but you can still like see what they're getting up to. And there's a lot of like educational things that you can see on there. Like my Instagram Explore page is like 90% old cars and like tips and tricks, and I have an old car, so I really enjoy watching videos like that, because some of them are really cool, and so I like that. But also some of them are like, here's how to fix this if this breaks, and so I do think there's a lot of opportunity and there's also like really great opportunity to find community and find like-minded people and people that share similar interests. So there's a lot of potential with social media, and plenty of people use it properly. It's just if you feel that you are kind of losing the control, or any of the things we've said earlier, that's when it might be time for change. But I think there are many positives to having social media.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. I really like the we spoke about how, these screens can take away from your connectivity, but they can also give you connectivity. We've seen plenty of times, or at least for me, I've had plenty of times where I'm connecting with more people because of social media. I remember when like COVID hit, a lot of my core friendships during that time were formed through social media because
Couldn't see anyone.
yeah, we really couldn't see anyone, and so a lot of my core friendships. So now a lot of my core friendships that I still have now were formed on social media, and there are some people I haven't even met in person before, but they're amazing friends. When I went back home this summer, I had friends I connected with from social media, and now I'm friends with them. So there are just many good ways you can also use social media, and we wanted to mention that, but again, things that have good sides usually have bad sides, and too much of everything is not good. And so maintaining balance is really important. Balance is really important. And so I think we are going to wrap up here. But before we wrap up, I really want us to just give a quick recap. There are many ways that our screens and our socials can impact our health. And depending on who you are, where you are, the point of life you're at, your job, there are many factors that can contribute to how you use social media. And so we can't give in-depth recipes on how to do what concerning your social media, because we don't really know your needs, and we don't know the factors that are impacting you. But based on all we've said, we hope that you can take time to sit back and ask, okay, does my job require me to be on social media a lot? Okay, if it does, how can I actually set time limits where, okay, when I'm on social media, I know I'm working. And then when I'm off social media, I know that I have to do other things. Okay, if you're not a big social media person, okay, what kind of boundaries can I set? If you are in school, what kind of boundaries can I set with your parents? Depending on who you are, we hope you can take out time to reflect on the individual factors that are affecting your social media or your screen usage or your devices usage. If you have an Apple Watch or a smartwatch or anything, how is that impacting? Are you constantly texting because you have it? Are you constantly feeling very distracted? And is that eating into your time? We hope you can. This episode was to make you sit down and think of the ways that all these things might be impacting your health. And then for a quick recap, one thing you can do is to set a time limit, for how many times you want to use social media. We mentioned, 50, let's say an example is 15 minutes at a go, maybe max 4 times. That's an hour. So that's like, okay, you can only use like Instagram for an hour. I think that's even, depending on how much work you have to do, that might feel like, oh, that's a lot of time, because many days I didn't even use Instagram up to that amount. But yeah, another thing we mentioned was like doing a challenge with friends. And thank you, Patrick, for mentioning that doing a challenge with friends, you might not find 10 people, which
even one person, just hold each other accountable. It's totally doable.
It's totally doable. So doing a challenge with friends, starting slow. Don't try to jump into deleting Instagram for 1 month. That might be very, very unrealistic. Even for me, that I think I have a good relationship with Instagram, I don't think I could delete it for 1 month. Also because I have work to do on Instagram. But even if I didn't have work to do, I don't think I need to go that far from Instagram. So if you think you're having an issue with all these social media, don't start by deleting them or aiming to delete them for 1 month, because the kind of craving, in quotes, you're going to have might be so high. You're just going to go back in, like full on back into your usual usage. So start deactivating 3 days, 2 days, that's another thing. And then intentionality, we mentioned that. Understand why you're using the apps. When you're using the apps, try to be intentional. Okay, sometimes I go on these apps to watch skits from certain skit makers because they make me feel happy. But then after a while, I'm like, okay, I actually have to go. Oh, one trick I have is that when sometimes when I notice that I've spent, let's say, 10 minutes on Instagram and I want to stop, when I see an educational post, I like that to be the last thing I see before I leave.
That's a smart idea.
That's what I usually like to do. I like to stop. Like one, for example, I think the last post I saw, interestingly, I think I still remember the last post I saw on Tuesday. It was on someone's story, and it was a video saying that for every promise there is a price. So like for you like want success and all of that, but there's a price to that. You just can't be successful without a price. There's a price to pay for everything. And that was the last thing I saw before I left, because I was like, this is a good video.
And a good one.
Yes, I felt I just felt really good watching that. And I was like, okay, I think I want to sign out with this. So, they're just be intentional about your usage. And another thing I like to do is I don't like to take my phone to the bed with me. I like to put my phone on the desk. So I set my alarm, put it on my drawer on the desk or something, or I charge my phone. But I usually don't bring it to the bed with me. Another thing I like to do is I don't use my phone while I eat.
That's smart.
Once I'm eating, I have to drop my phone. I don't do both of them at the same time. I'm either fully using my phone or I'm fully eating. It's something I started a few months ago, and I've really enjoyed doing it, so I've just stuck with it. So, yes, those are some of the things. Do you have maybe one or two more things to add?
Hold on.
Or something you want to try to do based on what we spoke about?
I do really want to try, keeping my phone away from my bed. I've found in the last couple of nights I've been trying to read right before bed, because it just knocks me right out. And so I guess I want to keep that up, because I have my phone right next to my bed for my alarm, but I think I could put it on the other side of the room, have the book help me fall asleep, and then your mind isn't racing as much. When you're seeing when you're scrolling, you can see 10 things in a matter of seconds, and then your brain is full of mush. So I would say that's something I want to try to get better at and change up, keeping the phone away from the bed. That's a smart one.
Yes. So we've mentioned a lot of things that you can do, but there are lots of other things. When you're with friends, you can choose. All of you can put your phones in a basket, and again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just take it little by little, take baby steps. If you find that you're sleeping after trying to put it away for 2 days, 3 days, it's fine. It's progress. It's progress that matters here. It's the progress that matters here. And if you try to be too hard on yourself, there's a risk of relapsing and just continuing as things were, and we don't want that to be the case. So if there are things you want to try, please let us know. Feel free to let us know, and we can try to keep you accountable. If there are issues you're having with social media, please feel free to let us know, and we can even send you more content on it, individual content, and help you maybe set up a schedule with how you can use social media. There are a ton of ways. We'll be happy to help you, and we definitely want to. It's a new year. We want you to set good boundaries with your devices, because it's going to impact you in more ways than you realize. It's going to help you feel more alert. It's going to help you feel more connected. It's going to help you feel more present. It's just going to help your eyesight. It's going to help your posture, your back. There are lots of ways that it's going to help you, and we want this to be the case for you. So yes, it's doable. Just like we said, Patrick said, it's not impossible. It's definitely very doable, and we are here rooting for you. So with that, we have come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Patrick.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yes, thank you so much. And there's something you said one time when I met you, screenagers. I think you were referring.
Yeah. Screenagers these days.
You were referring. I think there was someone who was using your phone a lot, and you were like, "Oh, screenagers," and that has stuck with me ever since. So, I hope that we can try not to be screenagers or screen adults, but instead take control of our devices and not let them take control of us, because we're not supposed to slave to them. We're supposed to use them as devices, as machines, as helps. They shouldn't be controlling us. We should be controlling them instead. So yes, please let us know if you have any questions, concern, comments, anything, please, you can respond on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please send us a message. Let us know what resonated with you. Let us know what seemed hard to do, and we can, walk through it with you. Please share this with friends, family, whoever you think would find this valuable, because this would be a way of you showing them that you care about their health and care about their relationship with social media. Again, we are very excited for what the year has to offer, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye bye.